Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Welcome back, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
This is sort of a two-parter. We teased this one last time. We were talking about attention, right? The components of paying attention. We did a couple teasers. We did because these topics are kind of interrelated. So, you know, a little different, but interrelated.
Yeah.
We are today going to talk about mind wandering, something that I didn't realize was like intentional, unintentional. Like I really didn't realize intentional, unintentional. So
I always thought it was unintentional until you said no.
There are There are two types of mind wandering: unintentional and intentional. And you're right. I always thought it's unintentional that my mind wanders, but no, not always. Not always.
Yeah.
So unintentional mind wandering. Yeah, I said that correctly. It's involuntary. Yeah, thank you. It's involuntary. It's not something we opt to do. It just happens. And it happens very often involuntarily when we're doing something that's hard for us. It's like your brain is sort of like, this is really hard, so let's think about this other thing instead.
Yeah.
Let's
kind of like,
right, this is really hard, and so let's reminisce about that vacation you took 10 years ago. something more pleasant.
Yes.
Or
but then, like,
you know, this is really hard. Let's think about that fun thing you have coming up next week.
Yeah, but isn't that like good things though? So like you don't like stress yourself out too much. But then
although I've done it with
then you're not paying attention
too.
Yeah, you're not paying attention to the hard things, so you're never going to learn it.
But I've also unintentionally mind wandered into something that was giving me anxiety. So, you know,
yes, I've done that. I'm the queen of that.
maybe that's more obsessive behavior than it is mind
that might
wandering.
be.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, I've done that. Definitely.
But yeah. So this unintentional mind wandering is potentially detrimental because there's some hard task that you need to be attending to, that you need to be doing, but your brain is like, no, not this. And so learning is interrupted because it's really through hard tasks that we learn, right? Something that challenges us.
Yeah. Right.
So then the learning is interrupted.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Your learning is interrupted and you're not challenging yourself because instead of challenging yourself, you're like, I'm just going to check out for a little bit and then maybe I'll come back when it's a little easier. Right. And then,
but again, it's involuntary. It's unintentional. I'm not causing it to happen, right? It's a brain self-protective thing.
That I was just going to say, your brain is protecting yourself, right? But then, or maybe your brain is almost like smarter than you think it is. Kind of like it knows that you're not ready for it.
No, our brains, unfortunately, in an effort to protect us, sometimes go in the wrong direction. That's the obsessive about your health thing. Sometimes our brains go to a place that's not based in fact. Just because a task is hard doesn't mean you can't do it.
Right.
But as a means of that self-protection, your brain says, you know what, let's think about the vacation you planned for 6 months from now instead, because this is kind of hard and we don't want you to feel bad.
Yeah.
And so you find yourself suddenly thinking about something else and you're like, oh, I didn't even realize I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, this happens to me all the time. And then you feel like, oh, wait, once you realize you weren't paying attention, then you click back in, you're like, oh, shoot, what did I miss? And now, like your brain is trying to fill in the blanks, I feel, because you're like, okay, what did I miss? I'm trying to connect the last thing I heard to what I'm hearing now. It's hard. But it's like, I didn't mean to do that, but I did anyway.
I do that all the time too. Maybe that's when you're reading something that's a little hard to comprehend. Yes. And so your mind wanders and you realize I've read this same paragraph 5 times and nothing is going in. I think that's the sort of unintentional mind wandering we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other type of mind wandering is, I think, what you were saying, Allison, which is the intentional mind wandering. That's totally voluntary. You are making yourself do it. And it's associated more with completing easy tasks. So something's really easy for you, and you decide, okay, this is really easy. I'm going to do this in 2 seconds flat in a few minutes. But first, I'm going to make my shopping list in my head.
Yeah.
That's
Because I could get
intentional
that
mind
done.
wandering.
Yeah.
I can do this. It's no big deal. I do it all the time. So right now, I'm just going to think about what I have to buy at the supermarket later. Totally voluntary. Another example of voluntary, I think, is this, and it's one that I gave Allison offline, and she was laughing, so I'm just going to share it. There are times when I'm doing something and I think, you know what, I need to walk away and come back to this, and I'll go, I don't know, I'll go take a shower, and I'm intentionally thinking about other things, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I have an idea for that project, because intentional mind wandering is actually potentially beneficial to us. It gives us a chance to consciously process what's happening and come back with more information, better ideas, ways to extend it.
Yeah, because your brain can't process all of it like as it's happening, right? Like it needs to kind of like, that's why people say, just let this sink in for a little bit. That's kind of where that came from, I think, because you're like, yeah, okay, I'll go let it sink in. I think I understand it, but you don't fully understand it. And like, until you're away from it, I think, because your brain is doing all this stuff
associated with
behind
easy tasks. It's associated with easy tasks. So it's not that you're not, I think it's not that you're not understanding it. I think you just are, I don't know, maybe it's like when I'm doing an easy task, like making my shopping list, right? Fairly easy task. And then I suddenly go, oh, wait, I wanted to pay that other bill. I'm going to go and think about that and come back to my list. And then when I come back to my list, I go, you know what? I didn't put on the list. I didn't put eggs on the list. I meant to put eggs on. Like things occur to you when you step away and come back intentionally, even from an easy task.
Yeah.
People may be wondering right now, what does this have to do with young children? Here's what I was thinking about when I learned about this. Children's minds seem to consistently be wandering. Partly that has to do with their brain development and the fact that they are still learning about A, B, C, D, E thinking, that sort of linear thinking, this to this to this to this to this. And it's hard for them to attend that long to go from this to this. And they don't really have that logic yet. Their minds always seem to be wandering. The question is, for me, are their minds unintentionally wandering, which can be detrimental, or are their minds intentionally wandering, which actually could help add to their learning because they walk away and they come back with a new component of it or a new idea?
Yeah.
So how often should we actually be saying to them, like, hello, I'm talking about this topic. Remember, we're talking about cats over here, and you started talking about dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yes. Which seems to be like my conversations all day long. I'm like, we weren't talking about your frog. We are talking about
water
all day. This is we weren't talking about that.
But the question for me now, having learned this about mind wandering, is it always unintentional on their part because of their age, or are they sometimes actually doing that thing where you go, all right, this is easy for me, I'm going to go think about that. And they just do it out loud. Adults know not to do it out loud.
That's true. That is true. We know not to do it out loud. I
know to keep it to myself. Right.
Yes.
So I know, keep these thoughts to myself, or people are going to think I'm not paying attention, or I'm not understanding, or.
Right. Whereas like children have like no filter too. So like they just are like, I'm just going to say what comes to my mind, and it doesn't matter.
They're just going to say it. And I admire that about them. And it's why I look forward to being older, because they do it too. The older people do it too. They say whatever's on their minds. Their minds wander and they just say it. I really wonder, we're always trying to bring children back to what we want them to attend to and what seems important to us. And I wonder if there is benefit in just going with them, Their minds wander
Yeah.
to that, and we go, all right, I guess we're talking. And I've done this with children, by the way. This isn't, if I'm
Yeah.
talking about cats and they suddenly start talking about dinosaurs, there's a point at which you have to just go, all right, I guess we're talking
Yeah.
about dinosaurs
Yeah.
now.
You do have to just kind of give in. I gave in today.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fine, we're gonna talk about that then. Cool. Like, but it does
Yeah.
kind of bring you into like this different way, like, because instead of you steering this conversation, it's all like them, and it makes it it's totally different. It was like actually really enjoyable because you didn't have this agenda in the back of your mind of like, okay, we're going to talk about pets and we're going to do this and this and this and this and this, and instead I just kind of let it go and I was like, all right, yeah, we'll talk about your thing, and then it led into all these other conversations. The kids were asking questions about things and are like, why can't you do this when I want to talk about what I want to talk about? But they don't. It's what they're interested in, and it's actually quite lovely sometimes. And I get it. Like as a teacher, there's times you're like, no, we really do need to steer the conversation this way because we're supposed to be learning about this right now. But there's other times where you're just like, let it go.
There's other times
where
I'm thinking maybe they actually, their brains, they have so much new. They encounter so many new things all day long. And there's so much information that they have to take in and sort and integrate. And maybe that whole going off topic and wandering, their minds wandering to something else, is that thing where we allow our brains to process what's happened and then we can come back fresh with a new idea. Maybe that's part of what's happening with them.
Right. And then I kind of wonder like
no.
Yeah. And then I kind of wonder, because I'm sure there's some teachers out there that maybe never want to let go, right? So like they always are trying to steer it back, constantly steering it back. And like, is that a good thing to constantly be steering it back? Should we as teachers just be like, okay, we're just going to let that go for a minute and let them process, like.
I think there are times when we say to children, we'll talk about that after this, or I think there are times where we teach them to hold on to a thought,
right? Because
and we'll talk about it in a little while.
Yeah.
And then I think there are times when we have to just wonder. I just wonder, is this their brain's way of processing all of the information that's coming in? And our adult need to have them attend to everything we think that they should attend to may not be so good for their processing all the time. Sometimes, yes. There's this, isn't there always this mix of what we want to teach them or how we want to support them? Sometimes we want them to absolutely pay attention to what's happening. And we want to teach them, okay, we're talking about this now, and then we'll talk about that after. And we want to teach them the order of thoughts. At the same time, how do I know for young children that it's not just their brain going, whoa, slow down. Let's think about this other thing so that we can process all the things that just happened.
Yeah.
How do I know when? I don't know when.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, difficult too, because it's not like we're working one-on-one with just one student. You have 15 students who are all at different processing levels, maybe, or something, So it's like one child might be wandering because they're ready to process, but the others are not, and then 5 minutes later, now they're ready. Like, it's like this constant balance of like, how do I handle this?
That's the joy of early childhood classroom, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's doing their own thing. I think if we're expecting everybody to be on the same page, then we're in the wrong age group.
Right.
Because they're never going to be all on the same page.
Nope.
I've seen people who really want these very young children to all be on the same page all day long. And I'm like, you need to go teach older children. Yeah.
Yeah.
Consider
you need to teach older children. And that's okay. That's okay. That's your niche, but like, and I do see teachers who then struggle because they're like, no, they're all supposed to be here. I'm like, no, they're not all supposed to be there. Well, you do kind of have to accept that if you're going to teach in the younger age groups.
I don't even know if I have advice about this mind wandering, except this.
I don't. Yeah, because my mind wanders all the time.
I think it's worth observing them. I think here's what you look for to know what's happening. Does the child switch gears and then come back with an additional thought about what was happening? That would be a clue.
Yeah, that's a clue. Yeah.
Do they come back later and say something about what happened earlier and they're adding more information and knowledge or understandings to
Yeah.
it? Because if so, then they needed to switch gears to process.
Right.
And keep in mind that we process when we sleep. So if you're working with children who rest and who sleep, it's very likely that they're going to, once they are up again, they're going to they will have processed some of what happened in the morning and have further thoughts about it. And it's all part of that process of the brain taking in and sorting information. But I think that's
Yeah.
what I would want to look for. I would want to look for
Yeah.
when this child is off topic all the time and their mind seems to be wandering. Are they coming back with additional thoughts? Because then that is actually benefiting the child.
Beneficial. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess this was like a food for thought episode.
It's fine.
Sometimes we do those. Yeah.
Sometimes we do those. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Food for thought, folks.
Yeah.
And here's some more food for thought. Check out Facebook. Check out our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. Find us on the web, on the World Wide Web. Nobody calls it that anymore, but right? Am I right?
I was going to, when you
find us.
stumbled there for the word, I was going to call it the interweb, and I knew that wasn't right either, because that sounds even older.
No, well,
I'm
all right,
not even
but I
sure
know what
the
that
word,
is too.
honestly. Yeah, the interweb.
Yeah, just find us on your technology. We are there.
Yes,
Recommend
on all your
us to
devices.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, recommend us to people. And we will catch you next time on the podcast, folks.
Bye, peeps.